Welcome back to yet another episode of Grow Yourself. This is actually not another episode. It's really a part two. And we are so fortunate to continue. I'm so fortunate, I should say, to continue really a fascinating conversation with Dr. Bernhard Kutzler. And, in our last episode, we delved into a lot of really profound questions and ideas. One of them was a bit of a change in my thinking, that he posed this question: what am I? Not who am I, but what am I? And so then we explored, other ideas, like, Bernhard's really unique insights into consciousness and social programming and the essence of being a human. And so today we're going to kind of pick up on that and go a little bit deeper into some of these topics, maybe even others. But I think we're going to talk a little bit more about strategies and practice. We we really didn't discuss this. We both agreed improvisation was the way to go. Like this is a good jazz piece, and that's where we're going to go. So Bernhard, thank you so much, and for coming back for part two.
Thank you for having me again.
It's beautiful. You started off. You spoke about in the last hour, about some of the outcomes almost, or you referenced this 3 years of isolation, but you really didn't get into that. And I want to ask you about that. What brought you to that point? Maybe you did discuss some of that. Listen, I can't sometimes remember what my name is, so if we talked about it, so what? But maybe just what brought you tell us about the 3-year isolation, what brought you there, and just about the experience itself rather than what came out of it, please.
Okay. So actually, my original inspiration to pursue the question or to explore the question, what am I, in 2011, when I heard a woman speak at a conference about her experience with exploring this question. And she was a dancer and therapist living in Munich. And she gave up everything in Munich and went to New Zealand for 7 months and spent there 7 months in silence.
Goodness.
And when I heard her, I said, I want to know that too. I want to know what I am. So at that time, I was working as a mental coach. I had a partnership. I met my friends and family. And so I started to explore this question in, let's say, my leisure time. And I made some progress, but after 3 years, I developed pain in my right jaw. And I saw my dentist. I thought maybe something is wrong with my teeth. And the dentist said, no, everything is okay. Maybe it's the jaw joint. So I went to see an osteopath. And she confirmed that she believes it's the jaw joint and we need 4 sessions. And after the first session, the pain was gone. So I said, hey, she's really good. And of course, I took all 4 sessions. So that was over a period of 3 weeks. And I was without pain all 3 weeks. And at the end of the last session, on my way from her therapy to my car, the pain started again, just like it was before the first session. And I thought, okay, what's going on here? And the only logical explanation I had for this phenomenon was that something inside me wanted to talk with me, saying, I don't want you to suppress the symptom. I want to talk to you. Pain is my language. So I started to observe my pain, my job pain, before the background of my life. And I managed to find a pattern. So whenever I behaved in a certain way, the pain became more. When I stopped behaving like this, the pain disappeared.
I think
So
I know
this
where
is
you're going.
how
Yeah.
this is how I learned that my body is a way that something, whatever this is, speaks to me and tells me what to do. I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks later that, so after this issue with my job was fixed, that I was on a hike and I tripped and broke my right toe. And so I thought, okay, if my body talks with me through pain, it's probably also talking with me to me through accidents. So I asked myself, what was the message in this accident? I got stuck with my forefoot in, and so I tripped and broke my leg. Where am I stuck in life? And then I suddenly saw the pattern. Yes, I am stuck in my research, in my exploration of the question, what am I? And I saw that obviously I love this exploration, but so far I haven't made any, so far everything was theory, and I haven't really made any progress the last couple of months.
Good for you. Yeah.
And so the message that I got from this accident was, you have to shift gears. And the only gear I could shift is to focus 100% on this exploration of the question, what am I? And so I decided that the only way I can do this, and there is a very good quote from Jim Rohn, who said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
I'm a big fan of Jim Rohn.
Yeah, and I really, it was very inspiring and very, sorry, quote with very, very deep value.
Yeah.
Because it tells us that we people, we are constantly reprogramming us. So if I really want to get free from my programs, I need solitude. Yeah, even if you're in a partnership, you and your partner, you always reprogram yourself. Yeah, you reinforce existing programs and you reprogram yourself. So ultimately, if you want to go this path of finding out what you truly are, then you need enough time in solitude. And since I am an extremist somehow, it was not just a period of solitude of a few weeks or a couple of months.
Or 7 months was your visual. I mean, come on. No, that's not enough, huh?
No, you see, I said I go into solitude until I found out. Yeah. So I didn't put some time limits on my mental journey. And so I decided to give up everything, to say goodbye to family and friends, to end my partnership. Just because I was more curious about this exploration than eager to have social interaction. Although I'm a very social person, I love being in social interaction. I love to be inspired by other people. I love conversations with like-minded people. But at that time, I really felt that my body was telling me, now we're talking business. Now you need to get serious with this. And so I just jumped in at the deep end. And the funny thing, at that time, it wasn't funny. But when I started, it was just, I think, 2 or 3 days after I finally quit my partnership and said goodbye to my partner, that my body really started to talk through strong pain. Something happened, and I started with an inflammation of my intestine, which was very painful.
Yeah.
And so from that time on, I would say during the 3.5 years, and the end of the 3.5 years was mainly because at that point, I felt now I want to talk with someone, because I had finished my theory of mind. That's what we talked about last time. So after 3.5 years, in addition to doing this self-exploration, working on deprogramming myself, I had this theory of mind, and I said, now I want to have someone I can present this to, have a discussion about it. So this was the end. So it was not planned, it just happened. And my experience is, especially from these 3.5 years, that there was always guidance. The guidance could be pain. The guidance could be circumstances. Like I remember I was hiking through a forest, and I had a short break sitting on a bench. And then a couple walked past me, and they were fighting. So I thought, what does it tell me? What is the message for me if I see this? Because they could have taken another route or come 2 minutes earlier or later, then I wouldn't have seen them. And then I realized that there is a fight in me. I'm fighting with myself. So there's always some message for you with whatever happens to you, with whatever you observe. And when I knew that I want someone to talk to about my theory of mind, I came across this opening music scene from La La Land, this wonderful movie. And I listened to it, I saw the clip, and then it was like an earworm. I couldn't get it out of my mind. And said, okay, what's the message here? Oh, I need to go to LA. So I was searching the internet for Los Angeles, and I thought my best conversations partners could be scientists, preferably maybe neuroscientists. So I searched LA and neuroscience, and in fact, 2 months later, there was a neuroscience conference in Huntington Beach.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So you get messages, and then I just booked the flight and bought a ticket for the conference. And there I found a person I could talk to about this.
Wow.
So there's always guidance. But you have, and you see, you need this solitude to see all these signs, because if you're interacting with someone, then you're always distracted. Yeah.
Yes. Or pointed in a direction just from the conversation.
Yeah.
That you can't just let the mind go where it can go by itself without real purpose, I guess, or intention, maybe is the best way to say this.
Yeah, because you see, the point is you need to do self-observation, self-exploration.
Okay.
No? You permanently observe yourself. You observe your thoughts. What am I thinking? What am I seeing? What am I hearing? Yeah. What's going on with me? Now, in this mode, you are not a good conversation partner for anybody, even if it's your partner. Because if you're interacting with your partner or with your friends or someone from the family, then you should relate to this person. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Even a
So
therapist doesn't, is not the same thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then this brings me to something I I forgot to mention last time, which is I really love the title of your podcast, Grow Yourself, because this is so perfect. Because what I did this 3.5 years is I grew myself. I became my own therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of talking to someone and then being reflected by this person, by the therapist, throwing something back to me, and so waiting for the therapist to see patterns. I became my own therapist.
Yeah.
So I didn't let the therapist grow me. I had me grow me.
Interesting you mentioned Jim Rohn. I reference him quite a bit. And one of the things that I don't even know if Grow Yourself came from this idea, but you may recall seeing him speak, and he would ask, usually, oftentimes a group of college students. He loved to speak to younger people. And he would sometimes, without any preparation or preface, he would just ask the group, something to the effect of, I'm curious what you think about this. How tall will a tree grow? He would ask this question and just let it simmer. And people were kind of like, huh? I thought we were here to talk about XYZ. And he said, just give me your answer. And then, of course, they began to throw answers out there. Well, they'd start by saying, well, it depends maybe what kind of tree it is. Okay. What else? So it depends on how much water it has, or whether it exists in a forest or in an open field, or it depends on the sunshine. There's so many the nutrients, the rain, all of these things. And he would then go on to say, essentially, that yes, we human beings are the only species of beings on this planet who has the ability, unlike a tree or a dog or something else, the ability to think about ourselves, to be conscious, to be self-aware, and therefore went on to, of course, talk about the obvious point there, and that is that, one of and his final answer was always, he would always say, yes, you're right about all that. He said, but the final answer about how tall a tree will grow, as tall as it can.
Exactly.
Depending on what you put into it, or the resource, or whatever the responses. And you make me think about that. And I don't remember if that's where I began to think about the title of the show. In any event, so Bernhard, before we get into maybe some thoughts about practices and strategies, can you just tell me a little bit more, the audience, a little bit more about the conditions that you lived in when you went to isolate yourself? Were you in a cabin? What was sort of your surroundings and so forth?
So I rented an apartment here in Scharnstein. So I was not out in the wild.
Okay.
Simply because if you did that, then all your energy goes into survival.
That's true. Good point. Yeah. No,
which makes it impossible for you to concentrate on this exploration of the question. So I made sure that the basic needs, the biological needs, are taken care of. So I lived here. I had a place. I had shelter. I had enough food. So I went shopping into the groceries to do my groceries, and maybe once or twice a week I went to a restaurant. The rest of the time I just would prepare my own food, and I spent as much time as possible in nature, because I'm very, very close to nature here. And so often I would go out in the early morning after breakfast to go to nature, and I was always alone in nature, because this idea of self-reflection, self-observation, self-exploration. And nature is supporting us on this path. Why? Because nature is 100% truthful.
Fair enough. Yes, I get
Everything
your point.
in nature is truthful. So nature floods me with truthfulness. Whereas if I go to a city with 1 million people around me, they flood me with their social programs.
Yes.
And so that was the mixture. I made sure that that my biological needs are met.
Yeah.
The rest of the time I spent as much time as possible in nature. And if I wasn't in nature, I was here in the apartment and observed my thoughts, explored myself, and I took. I had a diary, yeah.
Diary, yep.
A diary. Every day in the evening, I would write down what happened on this day. So at the end of the day, I reflected about the day.
Very good.
And I think I did it for a year, producing about 6,000 pages of handwritten notes at that time. And I remember one particular incident connected to my diary. Namely, that was at a time when, as I said, I had a sequence of pains and illnesses during these 3.5 years, and everything pointed me to a program. And when I worked on the program, eventually the body would heal. And I remember I had an inflammation of my duodenum, which was very painful. And especially in the night, I would wake up in the middle of the night and my belly would be boiling hot. So I would take some towels, put them into cold salt water, and then just put them there to somehow get the heat out of my body. And there was one evening where I wake up at 1 a.m. with this pain. And I had the impulse to use this wake time to work on do my research with my diary. So I set up and started to work in my diary. And the merit of having such a diary is you just write down what comes in mind, and then you look at it and maybe you see a pattern. Yeah. So probably something like an external therapist would do to you, throwing a question or a topic at you, and you just say what comes in mind. So I did this to myself, and then I saw a pattern, and then I would say, okay, that's a program I'm following. Yeah. So I did that for 2 weeks, between 1 and 3. And during that time, I was absolutely without any pain. And at 3 a.m, I was tired, as you can imagine.
Oh, I can imagine, yeah.
So I put my notebook away, lay down, and the pain immediately started again. I said, okay, I am supposed to continue working on that. So I took my notebook again and I worked for another hour. And at 4 o'clock, I was very tired again. And then I put it away again, tried to sleep, and now everything was fine. So my body now accepted. So the pain told me, do this research for 3 hours. So this is the kind of interaction I had with my body, with my environment. So constant self-observation.
So do you say, Bernhard, that I mean, when I get pain, I just, if I stumped my toe, I wouldn't analyze it. I mean, I do understand patterns for me that when I get very stressed, I feel the pain in my body. I absolutely understand that connection. But if I stub my toe or if I hurt my toe, I wouldn't come to that conclusion. I wouldn't go, okay, why did that happen? I mean, it's rather unusual. And I'm not, I'm taking your word for it, but so then do you suggest that this pattern, this understanding that you have come to is true for all of us, I guess, is the question?
Yes, that's
Okay.
because that's what self-observation is about.
Yeah.
And by the very nature of our existence, the outside always is 100% mirror of the inside. And I found out about this. So the situation with the toe happened after my jaw.
Mhm.
And with the pain in my jaw, I didn't ask myself in the first place, what is this telling me? Because
Yeah.
I tried the dentist, I tried the osteopath.
Good point. Yeah.
And then the fact that the pain, there was no pain during treatment, but the pain was back immediately after the treatment.
Yeah.
That made me think. And this is why I realized, okay, there is a message in this. And then I resolved it through observation. And then I knew that my body is a mouthpiece of some order, of something. And to really, and during these 3.5 years in self-isolation, I explicitly invited whatever this is to support me in finding out what I am.
Yeah. Interesting.
And then the language of my body became really heavy with one inflammation after the other. And each inflammation and each pain and each accident telling me something. And this is where solitude comes in, because I'm not distracted by anything. I can fully focus on this. And I'm not saying that now everyone who pursues or goes on this path has to say goodbye to everything for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Because it's enough, I would say, if you commit to this goal, if you say, yes, I really want to know.
Mm.
And then you spend maybe a couple of hours each week to do this kind of research. Yeah, just take 3 hours every week just for yourself. So that it's like if you want to learn tennis, what will you do? You will play tennis maybe once a week for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then every couple of weeks or month, you will do a tennis camp. You say, okay, now 1 week or 2 weeks just for tennis. And just do the same for your project. What am I? Or as I also call it, being free, becoming free. Yeah. Take some time every week, a few hours, 1, 2, 3.
Well, it's actually quite encouraging to hear that. I mean, in one way, to hear that, I guess my immediate thought was that you did go out into the wilderness and live in some cabin by yourself, but it's actually encouraging to understand that No, you didn't. And for good reason, that you wanted to take care of the basic needs to survive without having to put much effort into it, so that you could spend time with your mind and yourself and your spirit. And so what that translates to me is that others can do this. You don't have to go and live in the mountains for 3 years and experience this. And so you're saying spend 1, 2, 3 hours a week with the intention of exploring your thoughts and your experiences. Perhaps, yeah, go spend some time in nature for some time, and then maybe write about it a little bit, journal about it or something like this. And these things begin to reveal themselves,
Exactly.
Bernhard.
There is a quote from Goethe, which I will read out to you and
Okay.
your readers. Let me see, I have to find it. Oh, now I know where it is. Yeah. One sec. And this quote from Goethe, the famous German writer,
Mm-hmm.
really puts it in a nutshell. No? Goethe put it this way: the moment you finally commit yourself to a task, providence also moves. Many things that would otherwise never have happened to help you. A whole stream of events is set in motion by your decision, and it provides numerous unforeseen coincidences, encounters, and material help in your favor that no one could ever have dreamed of before. Whatever you can do, do it. Boldness carries genius, power, and magic. Begin now. And that's exactly what I experienced. You see, the moment I committed to this, my body started talking. And I got support from everywhere. Yeah. And since I wanted to not only find out what I am, but as a scientist, I wanted to know what is the bigger picture. Yeah.
Yes.
My additional goal, which developed during the first couple of months, was to come to this, or to find this theory of mind. What is behind all that? What is the nature of our existence? And I also want to mention again that I went to the Solitude only 3 years after I had started. So I started out much easier. And in the first year, I took time with social isolation for 4 weeks. So I took 4 weeks off. The second year, it was 5 weeks in a row. And in the third year, it was 6 weeks.
My goodness.
And as I said, this camp you do a couple of times now, in addition to spending a couple of hours every week. No?
Yeah. Wow. I mean, and so, interesting that I want to turn to some practical applications, and you just really offered them about how to do this in social isolation, if you will. I love that. So speaking of the theory of mind, can you now, and, can you maybe, tell how this theory can be, applied, practically to improve our lives? Maybe a tip, I don't want to, put you in a position where you're trying to explain the entire theory to everyone, although you've explained some of it, though. Just want to understand that theory in practical terms and what people can do, or is that it, to do the isolation piece?
No, so you see, the theory of mind gives you, explains why social programming happens in the first place,
I see.
why we are always reprogramming and enforcing social programs if we are in social interaction. So it shows you the mechanisms, the mental and spiritual mechanisms behind all this. And if you understand this, like if you understand how the engine of a car works, you can fix it.
Yeah.
So if you understand what mental processes are happening, then you can change something. You can fix it. You can fix the machine. Yeah. You can fix your being programmed. So that's one merit. And ultimately, so is so to say, the ultimate insight of the theory of mind is, as we have it in the Hermetic sciences. Have you heard of the Hermetics?
I don't think so.
That's a very, very old tradition going back to ancient Egypt. And this is the basis of pretty much every Western philosophy and spiritual system.
Interesting.
You might also know it, or some people might know it under the name Kybalion, which is the name of a book that was written about this. And it starts with 7 axioms, so to say, and the 7 principles. And the first principle, that's actually telling you everything. It says, all is mind, the universe is mental. Now, in my theory of mind, I offer a sequence of logical steps leading you from one perspective to the next, because it's the very essence of mathematics. It's, mathematical deduction is nothing else than a series of perspectives in steps small enough so that you can accept this step. So, and in my theory of mind, I offer a sequence of steps so that at the end of this mental journey, mental voyage, you can see that all is mind and that the universe is mental. So you don't have to believe it. You can see it for yourself.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if I've ever heard that the universe is mental. What do you mean by that?
That mind, not in the sense of our ability to think, but mind in the philosophical sense, which sometimes is also called spirit.
Okay.
Spirit as the counterpart to matter or to the physical universe, no? And that, so all is mind means that ultimately everything is mind, and the universe is mental means that what we experience as the universe, as space and matter and other space phenomena like light or other electromagnetic
energy,
wave, energy, everything that we consider in physics, that ultimately this is all made from spirit, or it comes from spirit.
Okay. Yeah. I can get my mind around that. Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying.
Like you see, consider weaving a cloth. Okay, so you're weaving a cloth, and you're looking at the loom with which you're weaving the cloth from above. Yeah, and then you have one thread, and then you wave and wave and wave and wave with this one thread, and the cloth grows. The cloth is the universe and its history. The current universe is the topmost part of the thread.
Interesting.
And the thread is spirit. The thread is mind. So there is an old Indian tradition, a philosophical school, which is called Advaita Vedanta, which originates from the Veds, the famous Indian holy books.
Mm.
In Advaita Vedanta, you have two levels of existence, which they call Brahman and Maya.
Mm.
Brahman corresponds to spirit or mind. Maya corresponds to the physical universe. And Maya is the goddess of illusion.
Mm.
That's why we say everything is Maya, everything is illusion. So the physical universe is illusion. But this doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, because the word illusion just means it is not what it looks like.
Yes, very, very well said. They're very well said, that it's not a deception. It's just an illusion. And those are two different things.
Yeah, and you see the illusion part is that in the physical universe, we believe that things are separated. That like, I am separated from this screen. I'm separated from this lamp, from this light. I'm separated from you. I'm separated from this timer. And that is the illusion. Why? Because the universe is woven from mind.
Yeah.
And mind is, while the universe, the physical universe, is the kingdom of separation, the mind is the kingdom of non-separation, of connectedness, of entanglement. Everything is connected on this mind level. And so, and since if the universe is woven by mind, logically, also in the universe, ultimately, everything must be connected. And we even have proof in quantum physics, because in quantum physics, they observed a phenomenon which they call quantum entanglement.
Mm-hmm.
That two electrons are entangled, which means connected.
Connected.
At some point, on some level, not physically, not in the universe. Yeah.
Not in the universe?
The connection is not in the universe, no. Because they see that if you do something with this one electron, at the same time, this other electron responds. Let's formulate it very generally. Responds. Even if the two are light years apart from each other, because in the physical universe, the fastest would be light to get information from here to there. And there is proof that they are connected. This one responds to this one faster than light.
Oh, my goodness.
Immediately. Not just faster than light, but immediately.
Even if it's 1,000,000 miles away.
Yes.
I don't, on a more practical level, I don't even know how you can prove something like that. It just seems beyond my little brain, so it's fascinating. Yeah.
The physicists, the quantum physicists, they have their hyper precise instruments.
Mm.
And part of this experiment was done by an Austrian quantum physicist with laboratories on the Balearian Islands, and they had two elementary particles on two different islands. So it was far enough, and their instruments were precise enough so that they could prove this quantum connectedness.
That's crazy stuff right there. I mean, that's wild. So I can't help but to ask now, Bernhard, the $64,000 question. You
Yes.
know, I don't, I hear some of your thoughts and your beliefs and your understandings here, but, assuming that you believe in God, or maybe in the same way of the Christian tradition, let's put it that way, in the way that I believe him, where is God in all of this?
There is, I talked about these two kingdoms, the kingdom of separatedness, and the kingdom of non-separatedness, universe and spirit/mind. Now, first, and that's this all is mind principle, Hermetic principle.
Yeah, but let me interrupt real quick. Let me just interrupt and ask real quick, though, but because on the one hand, you said, and many have said this, that everything is connected. So then how is it now disconnected? The kingdom of, what were the two kingdoms you talked about? Separateness and unseparateness, how they are not connected?
Yeah, you see, understanding this is the key to understand why, and I can lead you through a short thought experiment.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So imagine you are standing on the beach at the sea. The beach corresponds to the universe, to the kingdom of separatedness.
Okay.
From the perspective of the universe, or the kingdom of separateness, there exists something else, the opposite, the kingdom of non-separatedness, and this is separate from the kingdom of separatedness.
Okay.
This translates into you're standing on the beach and you are looking at the water, at the sea. And you see, okay, here is the beach, and here the water starts. So from the perspective of the universe, you see these two kingdoms, beach and water. Then you step into the water. So you leave the kingdom of separateness, cross the border, and step into the kingdom of non-separatedness. And now you turn around, looking back to where you came from. But now there is no beach anymore. Because now when that you are in the kingdom of non-separatedness, from the perspective of this kingdom of non-separatedness, there is nothing that is separate from it.
Wow.
So this is like you turn around and there is no beach, there's only water. So from the perspective of the universe, there is this duality of separatedness and non-separatedness. But from the perspective of the non-separateness, there is nothing else than non-separatedness, because everything is connected. And that's challenging for the mind.
Sure. No, it is for me. I mean, no doubt. Because it's almost, well, let me put it this way very briefly. I remember many years ago, decades ago, I was studying down in Cocoa Beach, Florida, and around me, of course, that's where Cape Canaveral is. And so there's NASA, engineers everywhere. And so I got to know actually a pretty prominent engineer, but he was also, a kind of a church leader as well. And so I remember one night, he and I met him through a friend who was one of the instructors, yada, yada. So we go over to his house and just to have some coffee and whatever. And I sat down with this NASA guy because I've always been fascinated by science, even though I truly don't have the brain, to really understand it. So I sat down with him and started asking him about things about time and space. And I mean, my brain literally started hurting from listening to him. But the more he continued to explain, I'm not joking about this either. He continued to explain. I focused so hard on trying to understand. And I kind of let go and just really listened. And it was maybe less than a second. I don't know how to explain this, Bernhard, but maybe less than a second. I had this epiphany, like I understood it all, and then it went away. And I can't describe to you how that even works, how that even makes sense. But I went, oh, like this. And he went, what? And I said, I understand it. I said, but now I don't. I literally had this visceral feeling. So that's the way that these things are. I think that you really, they're complicated.
I would rephrase it. I
Okay.
would say this epiphany you had, suddenly you knew. You didn't understand, because understanding is a rational process.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somehow, because you were so overwhelmed, so this is my reading of your story, how I see it, that you got so much information, and you tried to understand, and there was one point where you gave up.
Yes.
And then you knew. That's understanding. It's an understanding beyond.
I see.
The rational.
Yeah. I'll never forget that time, because because someone's likely question to me is, well, what did you understand? I cannot tell you what I understood. I can just tell you for that split second, it was like it all appeared and went away so fast that I can't describe it. Okay, so anyway, so back to the $64,000 question. So no, please keep going then, please.
Just what occurred to me right now, according to what you said you forgot it.
Yeah.
But for a moment you saw something which you could not put into words.
Correct.
It's a kind of a picture.
Correct. A knowing. I think you're right. A knowing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a knowing.
Yeah.
Knowing. Yeah. And to know, the word to know, the etymological meaning of this is to see. Because an old English word for synonym for know is wit. W-I-T. Wit is
wit.
An old synonym. Wit.
Yeah. I see.
And the word wit has the etymological, pseudo-European root weit, W-E-I-D, which means to see. So suddenly you saw an enormous, mentally saw an image. And this is the knowing. Yeah. Mentally see an image which is beyond words, beyond pictures as we have them, with blue, with shapes and colors. And this big picture, beyond words, beyond images, beyond sound, is what you saw for a split second. Now, what I did, and this was my scientific approach, during these 3.5 years, in 3.5 years, I developed this image for me. So that I can hold this image. I have this big image, which you had for a split second. And with my preparation of first my original training as a scientist and a mathematician, and I've always been good at seeing patterns. So with decades of training my mind in seeing patterns. And then these 3.5 years in solitude, I finally saw this image and see it permanently now.
I see.
Yeah. So thank you for relating your experience, because it really connects very well, and it's possibility for me to explain what I did.
I'm sure. So, and just to kind of make this conclusion, although I don't really, I listen to scientists and I read some. Again, I can't say that I really understand it. So I'm just reading, trying to grasp some of these ideas. But I don't, for me, and again, speaking from a Christian tradition, I don't have a conflict or a challenge to see, to draw this difference between creationism or creative design, or design versus science. I mean, for me, science just explains what God created. That's just what, so when a new concept comes around, it almost doesn't matter what the concept in science is. If they prove it, it's my thought process is that, wow, that's pretty incredible creation,
I agree 100%.
Okay.
If you say natural sciences, which normally we use sciences, because mathematics and philosophy are not natural sciences.
Okay.
They're humanities.
Yeah.
So more like mental sciences, you see,
Yes.
as opposed to, because in mathematics, pure mathematics has nothing to do with reality. Only when we apply it in applied mathematics, we try to somehow relate the mathematical insights to reality. And this goes well with the first Hermetic principle: all is mind, the universe is mental. Because the mind creates the universe, and natural sciences, physical sciences, try to explain this creation. So it's 100% with you.
Mm-hmm.
But your question of what is God in this image, let's go back to the cloth which you weave with the thread of mind. Yeah. God is the pattern of the cloth. Yeah. So it's not just a chaos of colors, maybe, or whatever, but the cloth has a pattern. Like if take a carpet, no, it has a pattern. And in my language, I call this the cosmos. Because cosmos is a Greek word meaning order.
Yes.
So there is an order in how mind creates universe. And this order pushes everything in the universe to fulfill its purpose as part of the whole.
Yes.
And this is this guidance, like from the this quote from Goethe. No? The universe helps you if you commit to a goal. That's the cosmos.
There, I see what you're saying. Yes.
There's something that pushes you to do something.
Yes.
This can be stronger or weaker. And while all non-human life forms on this planet follow this impulses, 100%, we humans have the freedom to not follow.
Yes. Yes. I'm with you.
when we do not follow, then we get signs to get us back on track. And these signs can be pain, diseases,
Yeah.
accidents, and so on.
This is
Circumstances,
you know,
encounters.
I got to tell you, this is so fascinating. I can't even keep track of all of my thoughts. So again, and I'm, I never debate with my guests. I'm not here debating with you. I'm just throwing my perspective out. But even listening to what you're saying, one, I guess my big question would be then who created the cosmos? And that's maybe where it begins to get difficult for a lot of scientists, that they still can't explain what, they say the Big Bang, and that, they still, and I know there's theories out there, but again, in my way of thinking, well, God created that Big Bang and the order and the cosmos. So that's just a declaration that I understand about that. But also, even in the scriptures in the Old Testament, it says that God created us in his image. And you spoke about this earlier about our ability. Well, even Jim Rohn talks about this. He has this one speech, how to make something from nothing. And he's talking about how do you have a thought and then create it. And it's the same concept of what you're talking about, I believe, in the creation of the cloth or the whatever the case might be. But the other thing, I feel like you just intentionally or unintentionally described sin. That if you don't follow the order, if you don't follow the cosmos, if you go down, you start to feel pain, or you start to feel the rub against that. And what's interesting about this, and I'm not a theologian, trust me, seriously, I'm not. But I remember in one, this is in the New Testament where two things where God or Jesus healed someone. One was a lady that, and you may already know all of this, but one where a lady just touched his cloth, his robe, and asked to be healed. And he simply turned around and said, your faith has healed you. But then there's another one where I believe it was the man who was paralyzed, if I'm not mistaken. That was the situation. And Jesus said to him, and this is where I'm tracking what you just said. He said, your sins are forgiven. And I don't necessarily, because I've always thought about that, I said, I don't necessarily know that he was talking about maybe the way that we might interpret sin, i.e. doing something wrong, but maybe to your point, that the sin is not always like killing someone, but it's like maybe not following the order that God created. So please.
So we tend to distinguish between right and wrong.
Yes, that's true.
But the universe is not about right and wrong.
Okay.
Shakespeare said, nothing is either good or bad, only thinking makes it so. So it's how from our perspective, we consider this or that right or wrong.
Yes, to kill someone or to rape a woman or a person.
Yeah.
We would see that as completely wrong.
Yeah. You could also say to steal something.
Yes.
But then the question is, what if you steal food when you're hungry and you have nothing to eat?
Yeah.
And the reason why you have nothing to eat is that in our society, we started something as ownership of land, which is the root of all evil. Because if some people, those people who own land, they control whether other people can meet their biological needs, such as food, warmth, like wood for making a fire, even water. So stealing food when you're hungry, we may consider it wrong in the limited picture of our society, but in the bigger picture, land ownership and cutting people off from their from what they need for survival is wrong in the first place.
Yeah, I see where you're going with this. I understand. Yeah.
So from the cosmic point of view, it's not about right or wrong. It's about truthfulness. And as long as you follow the cosmic guidance always guides you to truthfulness. And we have the option through our mind to not act truthfully, not follow the guidance. Yeah. And if we do not follow, then we get messages like pain and diseases or adverse life situations and so on. The critical part in this, however, is the ego.
Well, I'm with you there.
If you say, I want this, and this goes into creating with your mind. Because when the ego says, I want this, it doesn't mean that it's truthful that you receive it. Yeah?
Yes, agree.
And let's use the word need. The question is not what you want, but what you need. What you need from a cosmic point of view.
Yeah.
You have biological needs.
Mm.
Food, water, warmth, air, and so on. And then you have mental needs. And some of these mental needs come from programs, such as you have been...
I need a new car.
You have to be socially programmed that you want a very big car, or you need a new car every 2 years, or you need this or that.
Right.
So the car itself, from the car itself, you cannot say this is truthful or not, no? Because some of the mental needs are truthful, namely if they are cosmic. And they are cosmic if you need this to fulfill your purpose as part of the whole.
I see. Interesting. I see what
So
you're saying.
if your purpose is to travel the world, then a tool for you to do this is enough money. If your purpose is to reach a goal or to do something that you cannot do alone, your purpose is to find someone with whom you cooperate to reach the goal together. Because some goals we can reach alone. Mm-hmm. Some goals we cannot. We can only reach as a team. This team can be like life partners, no? with a romantic connection. Yeah. It can be a team without a romantic connection.
Right.
And our ego is fed from our social programs. Our ego wants what we have learned to want.
Yes, I agree with that.
Thinks what we have learned to think. It does what we have learned to do.
Yeah.
And for truthfulness, to find out if it's truthful or not, you just let go the ego and learn to hear this cosmic guidance.
How do you let go of the ego? How do you actually do that?
one way is this self-observation, because the purpose of self-observation and self-exploration and what am I, exploring the question, what am I, is that you find out why you do what you do, why you think what you think, to find the underlying programs. Now, if you have practiced for a while, you know, okay, these are my programs. And as you start deprogramming yourself in the process, which is, once you know a program, you observe yourself to find out whether a program shoots for a particular thought or creates a particular thought or action. And when you see this program before the thought or the action occurs, you can stop it.
Oh, wow. So that's before the thought.
And this is why self-observation is so important.
I see.
Yeah. When you see there is an urge in you to do something, to say something, to think something,
I see.
First find out, where does this urge come from?
I see.
Does it come from the program, or does it come from the cosmos? That's what you have to practice.
Yeah.
Wow, and to practice this, you need phases of self-isolation.
It's fascinating, just fascinating. You know, I've heard this many years ago. I don't even know where I heard it or learned it, but so let me ask you this question first of all. You know, one, Bernhard, do you talk to yourself?
Yes.
Okay. So the question is, who is talking to whom?
That's a very good question. That's part of the deal. Yeah, you have to find out who is talking. Is the cosmos talking, or is the ego talking?
Yeah.
And the ego, you see, the programs are patterns in your life history.
Yes.
The ego is your identification with your own life story, life history.
Yes.
So ego and social programs are basically one and the same.
What's that? Say that one more time.
Ego and all the programs together. That's pretty much.
Yeah. But some would say that the ego is necessary. We all have an ego, and that it's a necessary component for, you know, it's kind of like fear. You know, fear is to some degree necessary, or that's, you know, or, you know, because of the fight or flight brain, that if you could not discern, you know, if you felt you were in danger, well, that's your I guess your ego saying you're about to be in danger, or and therefore, and if you have no fear, you know, you might stand and try to have a conversation with a grizzly bear and, you know, and be logical about it. Well, it's, you know.
Yeah, no, you're perfectly right. Yeah, that's why things are neither good nor bad.
Yeah,
it's a
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Fruitful, no?
Yeah.
Also fear, if it's a biological fear, because a lion is running towards you or a grizzly, then this has a biological purpose. Yeah, to get all the blood into your extremities so you can either fight or flight.
That's right.
Either fight or.
Yeah.
But if the fear comes from a social program,
yes,
one of the social programs is, I want to be seen.
Yes.
And so the fear of not being seen, the fear of not being acknowledged in a social group. Yeah. And a lot of social problems with other people is that you feel not sufficiently seen, sufficiently acknowledged. Yeah.
Yes.
So you give power to them, to the other person, to the other people with this, because you make the other people able to control you, to control if you feel good or bad, depending on whether they see you or don't see you. But the origin of this is the social program, I want to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a powerful, those are powerful words that you're speaking there. It's something that I do think about often. And certainly this has become more and more evident as social media has grown. To your point, it creates more, perhaps you could even say, let's say pre-social media, even pre-internet, your social programming was more limited to, what was around you. And maybe if you spoke by telephone and then maybe by the television, of course, each of those increased the amount of social programming you were receiving. And now we're seeing clear. I can't give you any professional theories or ideas, but I mean, I probably could, but it's evident in the way that people are behaving now that we are on steroids with social programming. I mean, it's just some of the things that maybe I would see on Twitter or X or some other places I go, my gosh, how did you come to that understanding? I mean, it's just, and believe what you want, but, and some of that thinking, my questioning of that is, of course, social programming as well, but
Every social interaction, is social programming.
Fair enough. And some come from truths, but some come just from the development of reframing, reimagining this social programming that didn't necessarily start from a truth, in some form. I don't know how to really fully explain that, but wow.
That's why you see, this is why self-observation, self-exploration is so important, that you get the root to the origin of every thought, of every behavior, and find out what program is this? Where did I get this program from?
Yeah.
And is it any useful? Yeah.
Yes.
Because to survive in our world, the social program of stopping at a red light is a matter of survival, isn't it?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. So stopping at a red light is a social program.
Yes. Agree.
One that is beneficial for our survival.
That's exactly right.
Society. Yeah. You wouldn't probably do this in the jungle.
No. Very well said. And if we want to go back to sort of the order or the cosmos, that if you violate that perhaps social programming, or if you want to call it that truth that came out of a stop sign or a red light, if you violate that, there are very serious consequences for you and other people, you see. And the principle behind that is not the red light. The principle behind that is when two things collide, in order. If two things collide, yes, because that's right.
If many people move,
that's
right. Either by foot or by bicycle or by car, whatever at different speeds, then it needs some order.
Correct.
So that all the movement runs smoothly.
Yes.
It needs an order.
It has. Exactly right. That's right.
So at the end of the day, it's always about only about order.
Yeah.
And to come back to the original question with God, God is just another name for order, and it's giving the order, say, human-like appearance, an anthropomorphic.
Yeah. It does, of course, as I'm sure you know, begin to differentiate when you start to think, again, in my way of thinking, God created the order, you see, and for me, it's possible to connect with God. I mean, it gets cloudy there for different people in terms of their views. I'm just saying.
Yeah. No, I can respond to this from my
Please.
point. In the image of these two kingdoms, kingdom of separateness or the physical universe, and the kingdom of non-separatedness or mind/spirit. In the kingdom of the physical universe, there is physics. And one of the principles of physics is causality. Everything has a cause.
Yes.
Now, since in the kingdom of non-separateness, there is no physics, there is no principle of causality.
Yeah.
So causality has to do with time, because the cause is before the effect, obviously. No?
Yeah. Yes.
Now, time and space are part of the physical universe, but on the other side, the mind, spirit, non-contactedness, there is no time.
There is no time.
No space. So there is no causality.
Yeah. Interesting.
So order is something in this, so the order is on this mental side.
Yes.
And so since there on this mental side, there is no causality, there is no question who created the order.
Mm.
In my perspective, the order is God, and it's timeless. Yeah, because if there is no time, if it's timeless, which means it has no time,
yes,
there's no point before the order.
Yeah. I mean, again, scripturally, I know, it does say that, God said, I am that I am. There, and went on to express, I am the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end, that essentially expressing what you're now saying, that there is no beginning or end to God. And in your way of thinking, you say to order. That's fascinating. That is so fascinating to hear it shared in the perspective that you're bringing.
You see, since the idea of no time and no space is something that is beyond our lifetime of experiences, because our sensory experiences are all connected to time and space.
Yeah.
The very idea of timelessness and a spacelessness, no beginning and no end, is very strange to us.
Yeah, can't comprehend it.
Yeah, and you see, you need a certain amount of training, mental training, spiritual training, to can make sense out of this. But if you want to relate this to a large number of people who have no special mental or spiritual training, you still need to use the words.
Yes.
And so you, to tell it to the crowds, you need to say God created.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. You're putting order to the words. Yes.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Wow. I might also say that, and again, I'm, whatever your beliefs are, I'm sure you probably at least know this, that, as far as I can tell, Jesus did, set the standard, at least to some degree, about isolation and meditation and reflection when he spent 40 days in the desert. I assume that's what he was doing, was being with his own thoughts and God. And in this sense, this this battle with the devil, which the devil always spoke about, he spoke about the separate kingdom. He spoke about I'll give you food if you do this, or I'll give you this. And Jesus went on to speak about, we don't live on food alone. And he was talking about the spirit and again, maybe in your words, the non-separate world. Fascinating.
And one more thing that comes into my mind is, in the Christian tradition, there is also the saying that God is in you. God is in every.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now you see, this is where our power of the mind comes in. Yes, we can manifest with mind.
Mm.
And this is the God within.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because you see, my mind and your mind, as much as they appear separate from us, on the level of mind, which is non-separatedness, there is only one mind.
I see.
And your mind is one aspect of the universal mind.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
There is one hand and 5 fingers. So each finger is one aspect, one perspective of this hand.
Of the hand.
So there is one mind, the universal mind, God, if you will. And each of us is one of the aspects, one of the perspectives of universal mind of God. Makes sense to you.
It makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. And I agree with what you're saying, from that standpoint. In fact, again, somewhere biblically it talks about the branches of the tree, that we are the branches and the trunk and and roots and all these other sorts of things. I got to be honest with you, Bernhard, I could talk to you forever, but I'm not Joe Rogan.
Thank you. Very kind of you to say.
I mean that, and sometimes I understand why maybe Joe Rogan and who's the other, well, there's several of them that go on for hours. I mean, that's fascinating, but I just am, first of all, before we close out here, if you will, I would love for you to share, Bernhard, where people can find your books and where they can make contact with you, and just whatever you would like to say, please do.
Okay, thank you. So the easiest starting point would be my website.
Okay.
Which is my name, first name, last name, bernhardkutzler.com.
Okay.
It starts with a short bio, and then there are links to my Substack newsletter and to my YouTube channel with a couple of videos, and also to my books.
Okay. Which are all on Amazon, I assume. Yeah.
Yes. And also other sources. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the easiest. No?
Okay.
My main platform for writing about my insights is now my Substack newsletter.
A Substack. Okay. Very nice.
Currently, I post on Substack mostly twice a week.
Okay.
So I write short articles about new topics that come to mind. Yeah. And this is all taken from this big image which I developed over this last couple of years.
Yeah, very nice. And of course, all of that will be in the show notes. I just like for the guests to share that out loud. And I know you're on LinkedIn. That's where I first met you. And so anyways, anything else to share, Bernhard? Yeah.
No, nothing that comes in my mind right now.
Well, maybe down the road, I'm going to be thinking about things and think, that's a Bernhard question. And so then I'll have you on again one question leads to a long conversation, a beautiful conversation. You have a fascinating mind. You're a fascinating person, Bernhard, and I hope maybe sometime when I visit Europe again that maybe we'll have a chance to meet in person, and it would be fascinating.
That would be lovely, Kevin. Thank you for your nice words, and it would be really great to meet you in person someday.
Yes.
And I could show you this most wonderful nature that
Thank
is
you.
just a couple of minutes from here, where I
Yes.
spend endless hours in my.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Totally
Very nice. You know, I think a lot about this this experience that I mentioned to you in Mürren that I went to up in the Alps, and just the whole notion. You know, I could say that I was in isolation from the standpoint that my wife didn't go with me. She was you know, kind enough to give me the pass to go and see my friend and then spend some time in the Alps. But it was isolation on the other hand, because I didn't know anybody. I didn't really, I mean, I had access to social media, but I didn't watch television. And I mentioned to you before we started this that the first night I got there was a little difficult. I was just having I had just seen my friend, and I was quite bothered and frankly depressed. And then I started questioning, why are you even here now? And then then I started thinking about my mind being alone, maybe doing some hiking, but also some writing. And my mind shifted. I went to sleep. I got up the next morning. I did start doing some hiking and some writing. I didn't really speak to many people, and I do love to speak with people. I did at some point, but most of it was just being alone. And the outcome was spiritual for me. And I say that, I don't say that lightly. After 3 days of spending time alone in really an incredible Alps, which I know that Austria has beautiful Alps, the Italian and Bavarian, all this sort of. But the point is that, yeah, it was really something wonderful.
And that's really a wonderful experience that you had.
Mm.
And that's the key.
Mm.
Times of social isolation, of solitude and nature. This combination is just unbeatable.
It's unbeatable. And I agree with you. And I remember saying to myself, the decision in my mind was, you know, partly going to Mürren and to Gimmelwald was a bit of a business, thinking about perhaps doing some retreats there. But beyond that, the second part, and maybe the most important part, is I went there. There's a poem in the that was written by a military Air Force person. And he was talking about flying his jet. You know, I think it was an F-16, so a very powerful jet, and, you know, going up into the clouds, through the clouds. And he talked about he went so high that he was able to touch the face of God. And this was in my mind the whole time, that I was going to the Alps as high as I can get, perhaps to touch the face of God. And ironically, that was this peace and this joy that overcame me that I really couldn't explain.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned this, because it's a third ingredient. So solitude, nature, commitment.
Commitment is powerful.
You need the commitment, as in the Goethe quote. Now you need the commitment to say, I want to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am what God.
Yes.
Call it.
Yes.
Name it whatever.
Understand.
You need the commitment that you want to know. Then the whole universe will support you.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, listen, thank you again. No, please.
And grow yourself. Become your own therapist.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yourself.
I think it's possible. Yeah. Very, very good. Very good. Well, I will say to you, God bless you, Bernhard. And
Kevin, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Okay.